Hey everyone, today I'm going to go over how to do your rear brake maintenance. And what that's going to cover is taking off your caliper, cleaning the piston, lubricating the piston, checking the pads, and prepping the pads so they don't squeak, and getting everything back together. Now, a lot of times people wonder why their rear wheel doesn't spin freely. Now, your rear wheel isn't going to spin completely free because it has the chain attached to it, which is also on the engine. Now take the chain off and it's going to spin a little more freely. Now, on top of that, your brakes are always in contact with your rotor. So what that means is that the pads are always slightly touching. If you think that your brakes might be causing your wheel to stop, you want to remove the caliper to determine if that's the issue. And once you have it removed, you can spin the wheel, and if it's still catching somewhere, then you can start looking at the chain, the bearing, and things like that. But this is about the rear brake and the maintenance. And a lot of people actually don't do their brake maintenance. They'd figure just changing the brake fluid and changing the pads when the time comes to. Not the case. You need to do the maintenance on your brake calipers because they aren't booted. Most cars, their calipers have boots around them to keep them lubricated. In this case, motorcycles usually don't. They get dirt and grime in there and it starts causing things to bind up. So we're going to go through all that, and you're going to want to get a couple things together to do the rear brake. For this, you are going to need a socket wrench, a 6mm hex socket. An extension will make your life a lot easier. A hook tool or a pair of needle nose pliers, as you have to remove a clip. A torque wrench, Phillips head screwdriver, brake fluid, brake clean, brake lubricant, a dry lube. I use WD-40. You can use pretty much any kind of dry lube. This is for the piston, and it's because you don't want to collect dust on grease for the piston, so dry lube's the best thing to get. You're going to need rags, probably gloves. Optional is brake disc quiet. CRC makes one. It's a paste that goes on, or you can use brake lubricant. And you also want a syringe. Now, if you remove the brake line, you will need a 12mm socket, 2 washers, and you will need to bleed the brakes. So you will need a 10mm wrench and a bleeder hose. Of course, brake fluid, which we already mentioned. And that should be about it. Let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so the first thing we want to do, and the reason why I say the first thing is you don't want to forget to do this, because what happens is you get working on the project, get going, and then you forget. And we don't want to forget this step. You want to remove, say, half the fluid out of your rear reservoir. Now, I go through this whole process in my brake fluid change video, so feel free to watch that. I'm going to put a rag around here just to catch anything if it leaks, or if I drop some with the syringe. Our brake fluid is very corrosive, so you want to clean it up on anything you get it on right away. Now that I have the cap out, we're going to take the syringe and we're going to suck about half of it out. And go ahead and just leave the cap off. And if your syringe was clean, you can just put this fluid back in at the end. If not, replace it with fresh fluid. Okay, so we're going to go down here to the rear caliper now. You can loosen this bolt, but you might lose some fluid. And you also put air in the line. So if you're prepared to go ahead and do your whole brake system, bleeding it, and maybe replacing the fluid, you can go ahead and loosen that to make things a little easier. But it's not essential. Now, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to take your 6mm hex and undo these bolts. But please be careful. These bolts have a tendency to round out on the inside with the hex pretty easily. So if you feel like you're giving it too much torque and it might round, you're going to want to maybe get an impact, a good battery 3/8 impact, and set it on the lowest setting possible. And that banging will help loosen it up. But we're going to go ahead and try and loosen this bit. Okay, that one loosened. That one loosened. Typically, you won't have a problem unless someone over tight. All you want to do is just back them out. Your caliper is going to start falling. So go ahead and hold it while you take this last one out. Okay, now that you have the caliper off, you can hold it to the side and spin your wheel. See if it's catching on anything still. Again, it doesn't spin far. It's hooked up to the drive line with the chain, but it should spin freely and slowly come to a stop. It shouldn't suddenly stop as if there's something hold on to it. Now, you do not want to touch the insides of the pads if you're going to be reusing. If you're just doing maintenance to clean things up and maybe try and avoid the squealing, you do not want to touch the insides of the pad. You can use brake clean to clean them up if you do, but it's best to just avoid that. So the next step in this process is you got to remove this clip. Now you're supposed to replace all the clips on these every time, but for routine maintenance, I don't think it's a big deal unless the clips seem like they're deteriorated. But you just want to use a little tool and pop that clip out, and you should be able to pull this pin out. You might have to wiggle the pad around a little bit. Maybe use a little help from this tool. And the pin should come out. Maybe you could use pliers if you want, but it's not necessary. So remove the pin. Try and not let it get too dirty. We're going to be cleaning it up. Now to get the pad out, just rotate, pull off. Take a look at your pad. Make sure there's no major gouges or anything, because squealing can happen if the rotor or the pad has a gouge in it, and where it creates like a whistle. So that can cause squealing too. Now, my pads, you see some pitting and stuff, but I don't think it's bad enough to be what's causing it. So we're going to just set it down to the side, and then we're going to get this inside pad out, and that's done just by sliding forward, like so. And yes, I did just touch the pad, so we will clean it. And there's going to be stuff on the back, so watch what you touch. And this is where the piston is. Now, these springs on the inside, you can remove if you want to. I'm not right now, just because they look fine, and we're going to just lubricate the contact points up top, so there's no reason to pull them out for this maintenance piece. Now, the piston is what we need to clean thoroughly, and that's what can stop your pad from going back inside or releasing. It can stop your pad from releasing, and when that happens, it causes your pad to rub unnecessarily. Now, the best way to clean the piston is not where it's at right now. That doesn't do any good. You want to actually push your rear brake lever to make the piston come out. So I pushed it several times to make this come out, and you don't push it all so it comes out all the way. That's unnecessary. Your pads should never deteriorate that far. So just get it out a good bit. This is when you're going to want to get some paper towels and your brake clean. So get some paper towels and your brake clean. And it's going to help if you actually put the little nozzle thing in. And whatever you do, never point the end at your eyes. If you've never had brake clean in your eyes, consider yourself lucky, but it is one of the worst feelings you could ever experience. And try and shield all your stuff and then just spray it in. And make sure you get the non-chlorinated stuff. Don't use any chlorinated brake clean. And then you're going to want to take your rags and wipe it down. And just get everything nice and clean. Underneath, it's a little hard to get with the rag, but try and feed it under. Just get it all cleaned up. If paper towels keep shredding on you, go ahead and just use a normal rag, shop rag, And then once you have this all cleaned up, it doesn't have to be perfect, but you want it to be as clean as possible. You don't want it to bind on it. Take this out because you're going to be removing the caliper. Now your brake fluid is going to come out. Okay, so you're going to be doing your brake fluid and bleeding the lines. But go ahead, undo the bolt, and make sure you have a rag and stuff to catch all the brake fluid. Okay, and you're going to have brake fluid inside the caliper. So you're going to want to pour your caliper out. And you're going to notice a little ring come out. And now we had pushed the piston out and we cleaned it. Of course, now we got brake fluid all over it, so we're going to be cleaning it again. So if you took the thing off before you push the brake pedal, you can actually push the piston out from the inside with the screwdriver. Just try not to push it too far because it will pop all the way out, and you don't want that. So just get it out a good bit and clean it up. Get all that brake fluid off of there. I mean, brake fluid is nasty stuff. Get it all cleaned up. Go ahead, spray your whole caliper down with brake clean. You know, really get it cleaned up. You don't want any brake fluid left where it shouldn't be. So wipe it all down, get it nice and clean, get into the spring and everything. If you want to remove the spring down here, feel free. But just get it cleaned up and dry it off. And once you have it all cleaned off, wipe down good, then you're going to take your dry lube and you're going to coat the piston. Doesn't matter if it gets on the other stuff, we're going to be greasing it all anyway. But get a nice coating on there and push the piston back in. Okay, grease under here. Now this one, the little boot is actually through on the other end. So basically you just push it into the hole. But once you have it pushed in the hole, you can just pull the boot through and slide everything out. So in here, this is also where things bind a lot. So take the boot off. You don't want to get brake clean on these boots really. So clean them out as best you can without the brake clean, just because you really don't want brake clean on this stuff. It's a little too hard. Otherwise you'll be replacing boots. So make sure there's no major dust or anything in them. And then what you're going to do is you're going to brake clean these rods, okay? And wipe the grease off of them. Okay, so now that you got these cleaned up, you're going to want to grease them. So go ahead and take your brake grease, brake lubricant, and douse them up. Now I know it looks like I put a ton on here, and I did, but we're going to wipe it around. And the excess we're just going to wipe away on a rag. Because you don't need it. You don't need too much. You just want a good coating. And then we're going to put our boots back on. And the nice thing about the boots is they're sized. So the smaller one goes on to the smaller opening. So just slide it on and get it latched over that notch. You don't want to forget that. Otherwise it's going to let stuff in. Then you're going to take the big boot, doesn't matter which direction, and get it latched on over top. Go ahead and take a little bit of grease, put it on the boot, the small one that goes through that hole. Just it's going to make your life a lot easier. And you can go ahead and take this and push it in. And you'll see as you push it in, it's going to come through the top. You may not be able to push it all the way. Try and help it or push it a couple times till it gets popped all the way in. See, I've only got the one side up. I need to get the other side up too. So help it out a little bit. There you go. So that's lubed up now. Now what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to get some of the brake grease and you're going to want to grease in here, but only where the pads slide against. So if you take this pad, put it back in here, notice where it contacts. You're going to want to grease here. You're going to want to grease here. You're going to want to grease the tops of this spring here. That's where the pad contacts. So let's go and pull the pad out. And the important thing with this step is you absolutely do not want to use too much, because if it pushes it, squeezes it out and gets on the pad, then it's not going to break well. So just go ahead and put a coating. And this is what they don't do from the factory. And this is why a lot of the brakes squeal. Just put a nice little coating everywhere pads rub against. It's only a light coating. It may not seem like a lot, but it goes a long way. Now, it isn't as critical on the stationary pad because it doesn't slide, but I still put it there anyway just because of vibrations. So once that's done, we can go ahead, set our caliper down. So now we're going to use the CRC disc brake quiet. This stuff is actually becoming harder and harder to find, which is sad because I mean, this stuff's the best. It lasts. It makes a world of difference. So what happens is your pads, they set against the caliper here and here. You can see the rub marks, and the vibrations as it goes down the road makes it sing. And when you hit the brakes, it sings worse. So you can actually kind of hear it sometimes if it's really bad when you don't even have the brakes on. But when you do apply the brakes, vibrations just vibrate here. So this paste goes across the entire back. You don't want it to hit the contact points. You don't want it on the pad. It just goes across the back and it eliminates the vibration. So this disc brake quiet paste, you want a coating over the whole thing, whole backside, even. Whoa, I got too much. I just did my wife's Durango brakes, and they're a lot bigger. So nice even coat. Okay. Doesn't have to be perfect, but you want it close to perfect. So we're going to go ahead and set that somewhere clean, and we're going to do the other one. Now this one has some grease or fluid on the back. I'm guessing it's grease or something that they use to try and quiet them from the factory, but we're going to clean that up. And then we're going to take some of this stuff again, spread it out. You want to let them set for 10 minutes. Okay, so now that the stuff has set up, you're going to want to clean your pads before you put them on. So just spray them down with brake clean. It's going to be a little off camera, or it is off camera here, but just spray the pad down with brake clean. Try not to get any on the back that you just put the stuff on. And go ahead, take your caliper, take your small pad, and sure the loop at the bottom goes on into the spring area because that's where the pen goes in. You're going to put it in like so and help it down. And you need to get this end down below the spring here and slide in. Look at your pad and make sure you didn't get anything on the surface of the pad. Before you put on the other pad, you're going to want to lubricate this piece with your brake grease. Just a light coating. Then you're going to take your other pad and you're going to brake clean it. And you're going to take your caliper. You're going to tilt it sideways. Put it over the piece you just lubricated. Turn it back in. Push it against the side and push it down. And it's just going to sit there for a second, okay? Take your pen, brake clean it, wipe it off, and you're going to want to put brake grease on this as well. Again, just a light coating. Make sure you have your cotter pen ready, but you're going to take your pen and your caliper. You're going to push the top of the outside pad down, and you're going to push the pen in. Make sure the hole for the cotter pen's lined up. Push it all the way in. And that'll hold the pad in place, and then just pull it back so it's against the caliper. Take the cotter pin and slide it in there. Now the caliper is ready to be hooked back up to the motorcycle. We want to clean this extra residual brake fluid that's come out. Don't worry about getting it too clean yet. We're going to spray it down afterwards. Now you're going to want to take and this is if you even removed it. I removed it because of videoing. You want to make sure this O-ring is in here. And make sure that our washer O-ring is on the bolt as well. And you're just going to come in here, bolt it back in. Don't worry about tightening it down yet. You want to find your caliper bolts that you took out, and this slides up underneath the bracket. Go ahead and just thread it in a little bit, and then thread the other one in. And now you're going to want to get your torque wrench. Set your torque wrench to 18 foot-pounds or 25 Newton meters. Take your 6mm hex socket, torque them down. Then take your 12mm socket, if you removed your brake hose line, and torque it down. It's the same specs, 18 foot-pounds, 25 Newton meters. Now you're supposed to replace the O-rings. I forgot to mention that, or not the O-rings, the washers. Make sure you replace the washers. Now that that's done, go ahead and brake clean. Preferably without getting it all over your tires and stuff. Now you have to bleed the brake, which you can watch my brake video on that. I'm just going to run through this real quick. Now, if you didn't remove the brake line and need to bleed the brakes, you need to make sure to pump your brakes to get them tight again before you take off on the bike. And that's because you push the piston in all the way so the pads aren't going to be touching. Once you push the brake pedal, it'll tighten that up. Now go ahead and put your cap back on your reservoir and put the reservoir lid back on. And don't forget the safety clip that keeps the lid on. And that's all there is to your rear brake maintenance. Now, I know I say that's all there is. It's actually a little more involved than a lot of projects, but it is essential that you do it because, as you saw, there's no boot on the piston. And what happens is it eventually gets dirty and starts binding up. Thanks for watching. Stay safe out there and keep the rubber side on the ground.
Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments section below. I will try and answer everyone's questions as soon as possible. If there's anything you would like to see, any tips, tricks, techniques, anything at all motorcycle related, please let me know. I do these videos for you, so anything that you would like to see, I am more than happy to do it. If you like this video, please click that thumbs up button. And if you haven't already, please subscribe and click the bell to notify you whenever a new video drops. Thank you again. Ride safe and keep the rubber side down.